What's up, everyone? It is the Cannon Forder podcast. Well, technically, it's not. It's just the preview of the Real Madrid game. Nice to see you, Alex.
Nice to see you too. I've just spent about 5 minutes trying to remember the name of what. Someone in the comments will know this. Back in the day, Call of Duty montages, people had a video capture device, and I don't think it was an Elgato. It was a thing that everyone used to capture their screen to record like sniper montages and stuff. And I can't remember the name, and it's really annoying me. If you can remember, please let me know.
Well, yeah. The only thing I can think of is the Cam Link, but it's not that. It's not that.
It's not the Cam Link. Yeah, I don't know what it is.
You know what's going to happen? We're going to talk about pressing or press baiting in a minute, and then you're going to go, "Oh, it's that. That's what it is."
Yeah.
Mid sentence about Urian Timber. Just generally, first of all, congrats on getting the tickets for the last game, mate. I was one of the nicest comments I've ever had. Said so. I left a comment saying, glad you got the ticket. Like, what a game. And someone replied saying, "What a lovely man you are." Like, and it was really funny. I was like, well, yeah, I am slightly envious. I want to go to the game, but at the same time, I'm not like going to be like, no, how dare you? If I'm not going, you're not going either, Alex. But,
awful, man.
Yeah. How come you? What was it? Just like last minute? How did that come about?
I'm still waiting for the Bernabeu, the Bernabeu link. It's currently 9:43 on the day, so we'd struggle to get to Spain. But yeah, I mean, literally, it's an awful website sometimes, but sometimes it comes through. X.com. I put a little post out, and someone replied, just DM'd and was like, "Hey man, I got a ticket." He looked legit, and I took a leap, and I gave him my number. And he sent me the PDF, and I was like, it's too elaborate of a gag to not be real. So I was like, okay, I went along, and yeah, this guy called Steve, and he worked for Konami, and someone had dropped out of his box, so I watched it in his box. It was amazing. It was unbelievable. Yeah, it was so cool. Shout out Steve.
That might be one of my favorite videos of yours, because your voice is like more or less gone.
Yeah, mate.
And you're just beaming. It was like pure. Yeah,
I don't even know what I said. I honestly don't know what I said. I just like everyone's really good at football. I love Arsenal. Thanks everyone. See you soon. There's no analysis.
But yeah, there was that, and the fact that you briefly appeared on the Cannon podcast as well. That really made me chuckle. It was almost like George was like, "Yeah, that's enough of you, Alex.
That's enough.
See you later.
That's enough. See you later. Back to the pressing."
What was it like then for you? Because obviously, for me, I don't get to go to the games much anymore, so I see it from the media point of view, the bird's eye view. Sometimes when you're in the ground, you see it slightly differently. Did it feel as comfortable? I don't know if that's the right word. Like towards the end of the game, I guess the last 20 minutes. Did it feel comfortable to you, or was it still one of those nervy wins?
I think it did. I think when the Marino. I mean, I literally dropped to my knees when the Marino goal went in, like actually on the Emirates, on the Emirates ground. Yeah, I think. It felt comfortable to some degree. I'll always say, and I've said this before about the sort of the experience between the match day and TV. I'd probably say I go to 20% of games. So I watch most games on TV. I think like it's not that. The TV experience, it's a very different experience, but you do get I think you get a better sense of the narrative of the game. You get a better sense of you just see things clearer. Like you go again, and you have a very different experience. And, I think I come away from that game with a very different view of it. But I do think it did feel comfortable in the stadium, but I will always caveat with it's hard to tell because there's so much emotion in it, and it's hard to sort of take that off. But I've said this before as well, but that was the best live event I've ever been to. I'm sorry to make you even more jealous, but it was the best live event I've ever been to in terms of like just atmosphere, the events, the story of the game, the fact that like we knew we were better than them in the first half. It's not like we were sort of chasing our tail and surviving. We were objectively better than them in the first half. We felt that, and then we went and proved it second half. I love that sort of as a story and as a narrative. So yeah, it was unbelievable. Sorry.
Oh mate, no, I genuinely so happy you got the tickets. One of the fondest memories I've got with football is I went to Portsmouth, Fratton Park, and Thierry Henry got a standing ovation there, and it's
Yeah.
something that's kind of just stayed with me, and I think will always stay with me. Those moments, you can't describe them. They're just unbelievable. So hopefully, if anyone's watching this, we've still got time for Alex and I still get tickets. Send them across.
Flies out, little Ryanair trip to Madrid.
I don't know if my legs and back can take a Ryanair trip. I'll be honest with you, Alex. Let's kind of go into it. So obviously 3-0, we are up at the moment. For me, the biggest thing was the control in midfield. It was essentially midfield superiority. That amongst shooting, which is we're not the most efficient team in terms of shooting, but I had a look and we were at 92% accuracy for shooting on the night. My only kind of concern with this is can we kind of control that midfield again? Can we be as efficient as we were? Because you take away the 2 moments of absolute brilliance from Declan Rice, it could have been a bit of a more nervy match, if you could per se. I guess we did go close a couple of times. Courtois pulled off some absolute world-class saves. We saw it again last night with Donnarumma. The difference a keeper can make is unbelievable. He's essentially kept PSG in the Champions League. Are you worried about our attack and being free flow? Like, what for you, just generally, is this a game where we can go free flowing? Is this a game where we have to kind of sit back? I wouldn't say in a low block because that's not Arteta's style. I think the Man City game's the only time where we've kind of sat back. But is this a game where we have to kind of control the game rather than just go gung ho?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I mean, you asked the question, am I worried? Yes, like obviously. But I think if I'm taking the kind of the fan hat off, I look at the reasons we control that match, and I don't see why we can't replicate that because nothing's changed. So if we go through that, okay, controlling the 1v1 battles out wide, I think on both sides, I can't see a fullback coming in who's going to stop Saka or Martinelli. So we win those battles, and I can't see how Vinny Jr. or Rodrigo get loads more change out of Miles and Timber. So in terms of out wide spaces in the 1v1 battles, no problem. In terms of the risk versus reward, Madrid lose, in my opinion, you can see it there, by not being tucked in further, the spaces they're creating. They lose their counter-attacking threat. So I think it says their risk versus reward for leaving Mbappe a little bit higher, leaving Vinicius a little bit higher, playing those early balls. I don't think they're going to change the midfield spaces. So I think we can still control the midfield in that sense. Physically, I look at who they're going to play. Modric, maybe I don't think Camavinga's not available. I think Tchouaméni might be back, but he might go. Is Tchouaméni available? He might be.
He is. I've got here actually, Alex. Hang on, let me bring it up a minute. So I've got the predicted lineups. I've also got the lineups for their last game. So against Alaves and then against us. Yeah. So I know Mendy's not available. Camavinga's not available, obviously.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have been regardless of the red anyway. But for me, it was really interesting that, I mean, ignore Mbappe getting his red card. They didn't set up in that kind of 4-4-2 formation, and Rodrigo switched to the other side. And I thought it's interesting that they've completely changed their system.
Yeah. Maybe they will again. I don't know, but I don't look at like a midfield group and say physically they're going to dominate a Rice Partey pivot. Like whatever happens, I do think physically our back us. So yeah, I think in all the way, however, maybe Madrid set up in a different way, as you say. I don't know, but I can't, in all the ways that things could shift. Maybe is it balls over the top, or they were trying that, and you have to actually get possession in the midfield. I think if you pull Bellingham inside, you take him away from maybe supporting Alaba on the as a 1v1. So I don't see it. So yeah, I think there's adjustments they can make, but I don't see this big turnaround where Madrid completely control the game. So, and I to be honest, I was listening to Arteta's pre-match presser. And by the way, that doesn't mean they don't win. I don't know. Maybe we'll come to score predictions in a second. But I don't see that changing. I was listening to Arteta's press conference, and he said, we're just going to go out and do the same thing again, but slightly better. I think in terms of what we could do better, I think there was a couple of breakaway moments that we maybe could deal with a little bit better. I think maybe there's a touch more invention in the final third that we can pull out, and I think we probably didn't get the ball enough out to our wingers when they did go 1v1, they looked great. I thought, in terms of volume of balls out there, I think we can improve that. But yeah, I think we just go again. We do what we did.
Yeah, I completely agree. Ironically, that lineup for Real Madrid with Camavinga, Valverde, and Tchouaméni, that would be, for me, the kind of, it would set them up in the best possible way against us. But they haven't got the availability. It'll be interesting to see if they play Vasquez on the right or if they play Valverde back there, because although Valverde has been great in La Liga, I think Martinelli was running rings around him.
Yep.
It was really, really interesting to see. And maybe that's part of, coming up against an actual proper left winger of high quality. Martinelli, for me, since Chelsea, I've been saying it, since Chelsea, he has been really good. Like his chance creation has been off the charts over the last kind of 3 or 4 weeks, which is perfect because he's got like a habit of this. I don't know if you remember, was it last year? It might have been the year before. In the run-in, Martinelli was one of our best performers.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to have this really good habit of peaking at the right time. And although he hasn't been fantastic for this season, we've kind of talked about him a lot. It's nice to see him actually running at the fullback because we've missed that. Maybe we do need to kind of attack those wide areas a little bit more, but we have been kind of creating more centrally recently, which is again something we've talked about lots and lots and lots in the past. Those kind of getting into those central areas. Quick question though, in terms of setup, and this is completely off topic. Has Mbappe set them back tactically?
I think it's hard to say Mbappe has set a team back.
I'm going to clip this, by the way.
But I think what maybe he kind of, his absolute best qualities come when you play him in a certain way, which is basically the way we saw against us. And I think against a lot of teams who are maybe less switched on to that or less able to deal with that, both in terms of how we shrink our spaces and also how aggressive we are in the press, but also, individually Saliba stepping up and dealing with him. If you don't have those three things, then yeah, he can kill you. I mean, he's also brilliant around the penalty box as well, but I think it maybe just, he needs a touch more freedom than the standard 9 to go and really do the Mbappe stuff. And I think maybe it just opens up the midfield to be played through a little bit more. And I think before the Madrid game, there was some numbers going around, essentially looking at sort of how much they tackle in the middle third, and I think they had like the lowest in terms of tackles in the middle third in La Liga, in terms of their sort of disrupting the build up. I think Mark's Stats Club has these numbers. They're pretty low as well. Like they force you high, but then in terms of actually getting at you, they're pretty low in terms of disrupting your build up and doing that well. So yeah, I do think they, but again, it's as we say, it's risk versus reward. They then can go and score 3, 4, 5 goals in a match because of their individual talent that is a bit more free. You know what I mean? So it's it's how do you want to play? But in this game state, defending a 3-0 lead, it's difficult to say I'm really confident we'll do that. But I suppose my thing about this game is, if we go and concede 4, fine, but that will be against type.
That's not fine. That's not fine.
It's not fine, but it's really not fine. But I'm going to make it fine. But it will be so against type. I think, like, I saw some numbers yesterday. I'll try and bring them up quickly. But we haven't conceded more than 2 goals.
I've got some here actually.
Have you got them? Yeah, for 79 matches.
I mean, I think so. Just in Champions League this season, goals conceded we're second. I believe Inter Milan are first on that. XG against first, shots faced first, on target faced first. But in terms of here it is. So for conceding, sorry, you right there, Alex?
Yeah, fine.
Something caught your eye? Or?
No, nothing, mate.
No. Okay, all right, that's fine. So in 79 games, we haven't conceded 3 or more goals. I think the last time was Luton, that 4-3 match.
Yeah.
but just looking at it, we don't. The clean sheet rate is almost 40%.
Yeah.
And we're a completely different side to we were. I think as well, since Kivior has started with Saliba, in all the games they've started together, I think it's 8. They haven't lost.
Wow.
They rarely concede as well. I've also got here for the XG conceded. I mean, we are by far and away the best.
Yeah.
And then that's not including the games last night either, which would obviously change it slightly, but I didn't feel that was fair considering we've played less games. But looking at Real Madrid compared to us, they are there to be got at.
Yeah.
And I think even if we did concede 4, I just cannot see them scoring 4 and then staying with a clean sheet. It would just be, as you say, completely go against type. It really would.
It would be a freak game. I mean, they've conceded over double the amount of expected goals to us, and that has to count for something. And I think also it's about the behaviours of the team. If you watch Aston Villa last night, I could, Aston Villa are great on the transition, and then they have some really great individual quality. Actually, fairly analogous to Madrid. Actually, the inability once out of possession, like it would be like Barcola would go up on the left wing. You'd see 2 Aston Villa players tracking him. He'd cut inside. Maybe there's a shot blocked or whatever. The ball goes back. Ball comes back into the centre backs, and then sort of 5 seconds later, Asensio and Rashford or whoever it was starting to get back into shape. That, as Arsenal as a team, the behaviours, the contracting and expanding of the spaces, I think there's buy-in, and that requires effort. That requires a team that believes in the manager's vision and believes in the manager's plan, and they must be looking at the defensive numbers and thinking, look, ultimately that running is worth it. You know what I mean? And I think we're seeing that.
Yeah, I've got it here, Alex. So this I think shows how much of a nerd I am. One, but essentially this is all the results since December for Real Madrid. I've highlighted in red every single time they've kept a clean sheet away from home, but at home they've only done it twice.
Wow.
Once against Girona, and then once against Real Mallorca. So. And that the most
Real Mallorca in La Liga.
I think that's in the cup. That's in the Spanish Cup. But essentially, since February, they have not kept a clean sheet at home.
Yeah.
So they can try to make it as much of a cauldron as they want. I know the roof's been closed because it's raining out there, so they're trying to make it as much of a horrible proposition as they can for us, but they can't keep a clean sheet. So I'm quite quietly confident that we will go through after this.
I think it's gonna be a very open game. I mean, we have to say, unfortunately, that Carlo Ancelotti did raise his tone and he was assertive, according to Miguelito at Cope. So, if we had any hope before, maybe we don't have any now. Carlo Ancelotti had a 10-minute talk with the players, Alex, and asked for commitment and extra effort versus Arsenal. He was assertive and ended up raising his tone. So I think we've lost, basically.
Have you seen the video with so they've essentially lifted the opening lines from one of the Matrix films?
Oh, really?
It's so funny that I don't know. I've never seen a media-driven narrative where it's all the Arsenal fans are terrified. They know they're going to lose, and you're 3-0 down.
This is my whole thing with George on the calendar. It's like we only see what's based to us. We this is all coming in because we're seeing it because we're facing it. I'm sure they do it to lots of teams.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, they're certainly doing it to us.
It's interesting as well that they even asked for the Alaves game to be moved, didn't they?
Yeah. Got denied.
Yes, and I love that. Apparently it was kind of just fell on deaf ears with that one, which is interesting because I think they're used to kind of getting their own way as well.
They probably are.
Whether it's decisions or fixtures or anything really. I was looking here, so if on this. And let me bring it up. So, not since 1975 have Real Madrid overturned a 3-goal first leg deficit. And do you know who that was against?
Oh God, it'll be Arsenal, will it?
Derby County.
Derby County.
Yeah.
Fair play.
Which kind of
The mighty
shows
Derby County.
it was a 5-1 victory for Real Madrid. But I just
Wow.
think you look at the kind of game where we play. I'm not worried too much, which is bonkers to kind of go into this, feeling not only that we can get through this leg, but I feel that we can actually, we've got more than enough to get a draw, let alone kind of go on to a victory.
I don't want, maybe this would be the end of this, but I really look, I feel as though Madrid will probably score, but I really don't think it. I think we'll probably dictate a lot of the match in the same way that we did at the Emirates. I think a lot of this stuff is, but we're going to the Bernabeu. It's like, yeah, that's a stadium, but if we're talking about the football itself, I don't see what's going to massively shift between the first and the second leg. Like I don't know what changes. I don't know what principles are going to shift for Ancelotti. I don't know what players he has available that changes things. And also, even the players that okay, well they're going to play Valverde in the midfield. Fine. Well, you're playing Lucas Vasquez up against Martinelli at that point. Like and Marzo Skelly slipping balls through to him. So I don't see how this Madrid team massively changes things. I do think they'll score because there is that that pressure and whatever. But I think we're going to control a lot of the match. I mean, we haven't even discussed what this all means, really, which is realistically, we're so fixed on this Madrid team. Yeah. We are 90 minutes away from a Champions League semi-final, and that is just for in the context of this season, that's got to be the biggest prize of all, to go out there and say, look, guys, not that we did it in the first leg, but we are in a really, really strong position. And we say that to say, if you just lock in for 90 minutes, that's all you need. All you need to do is literally just concentrate for 90 minutes, play our way. You're this close. That's all you're literally this close to a Champions League semi-final. And the third, I think, would be the third one, or maybe the fourth one, but certainly a very low number in Arsenal's history. And that is what more motivation do you need to, do the running you need to do to close players down, to be physical, win your battles, all that stuff. Like, what more motivation do you need? You've done kind of the hard work in the first half.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny you saying about kind of what does this mean? I saw your video recently talking about Arteta and essentially talking less about the collective and more about the individual. And there was this comment yesterday. I know you love the pressers. I know you watch every single one. So I thought this part was really, really interesting. Was Tom Canton asked the question, has Declan Rice been practicing his free kick since the 2? And it was less about that, but more about the fact that he says about them being amazing. He says, I think the third goal was beautiful to watch, a very collective goal. When you come to this stage, you're going to have big team moments, big individual moments. Now it's time to do it on the pitch. And he's not shying away from, he's been reiterating that recently, saying it's not just the collective, it's about individuals stepping up. Yeah. For you, if you're putting your money on an individual stepping up, who is that?
A Bukayo Saka Bernabeu curler would feed families, Alex Forder. It would feed families. I think it would be Bukayo. A little rifle into the bottom corner after beating.
Oh, I'd love it.
Alaba 1v1 would just honestly, like, if say we score early through a set piece or something, and then Saka does that, I think that it's going to be up there with the best moment of my life. Like, why wouldn't it be? Do you know what I mean? It's just. Yeah. Do you know what's so funny as well? Is it feels like not that this Champions League run has sprung up on us. We know how good we are, but it feels like very quickly everyone's gone, oh, this season could actually, we were in a round of 16, which we absolutely smashed a team. Yeah. But no one was going like, oh, the Champions League could save our season. And one game later, we're the favourites. It's so quickly how this has turned around, and yeah, mate, if we can win it.
Could you? I mean, you just look at the run we've had as well, and the teams we've played. The performance have been unbelievable. Yeah. I saw there was some discourse essentially about Arteta and how he does in Europe, and Arsenal's history in Europe, and how we kind of falter. And I said on it, well, actually, if you kind of just look at this season alone, because you can look at history as much as you want and like football heritage and all of this. The fact of the matter is, when it comes to, I don't know, horse racing, you're looking at how the horse has been racing in recent races. If you're looking at tennis and Wimbledon, whatever it may be, you'll be looking at who has this season been doing really well.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we need to look away and kind of take ourselves away from the narrative around the spectacle sometimes, because we have beaten PSG, we've beaten PSV, we've beaten Sporting, we've beaten Liverpool, who are going to be current champions in the Premier League, unfortunately. We've beaten City. Like, in terms of big games, big teams, the only one I was disappointed with was Inter.
Yeah.
And
we just to save you from comments, we didn't beat Liverpool, but we should have done.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. But nevertheless, we didn't lose against them. Sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
And we will beat them in the next game.
Exactly.
I'm that confident. But in terms of like big games, big teams,
Yeah,
we have got now like a recent history of doing really, really well in them. And I think
Massively.
sometimes, especially for Arsenal fans, there's like this PTSD around these
100%.
occasions, these big ones. Like Bayern Munich last year for me, I just, as soon as I knew we were playing there, my heart sank. And it's that idea of, you know, what I'm kind of relating to previously, rather than looking at the match in isolation. And in actual fact, we had moments to beat Bayern Munich, and I think we've learnt from them. And if anything, this game against Real Madrid has, you know, put us in better stead to go on in future. You know, whether it's the rest of this Champions League campaign or next Champions League campaign, I think we're in really, really good stead now.
I think so.
I don't want to kind of like brush past Real Madrid, but I'm going to.
Do it.
So last night, obviously, we had Dortmund doing really, really well, kind of just getting pipped to the post. Villa doing the same. If we go further in the Champions League, do PSG and Barcelona, do they kind of almost play into our hands?
I think honestly, PSG would be how do I put it? I think in terms of in certain phases of play, PSG I think are more difficult than Madrid in terms of breaking them down, in terms of but you know, they don't have the individual quality in Madrid, so it's like slightly different ways of playing. I think the PSG and Barcelona, the best of both of them is in open spaces. Again, it's in open spaces. It's Barcola running through space. It's Kvaratskhelia running through space and getting a shot off or whatever. When I look at Jurrien Timber's performance against Vinicius Jr., would not leave him alone. He literally had him on absolute lock. And so I don't see why. We've already beaten PSG. Okay, they didn't have Kvaratskhelia, I think, at the time, and I don't think Dembele was available.
No.
But I do feel, I don't remember feeling anything other than the fact we controlled the game. And I can't remember their midfield that night, but I don't think it was a million miles away from the midfield they had.
João Neves, didn't they?
Yeah. So yeah, look, I would be, can I give you my prediction? I'm really sorry.
Let's go for it. Let's go for it.
I'm really sorry to do this. Yeah, the team that night was João Neves, Zaire Emery, and Vitinha. So you're not a million. And they had Doué and Barcola available, and Nuno Mendes, Hakimi, Marquinhos, and Pacho, and Donnarumma. That's their team, pretty much. So I think apart from Dembele and Kvaratskhelia, I'd be fairly confident against PSG. I think if we get through to the semi-finals, my prediction is we beat PSG over two legs, maybe with a loss somewhere, but we beat them over two legs a bit tighter, and I think we lose the final. I'm sorry. Because I think Barcelona, they're just having one of those seasons. Look, this is a prediction on the 16th of April, so I have reserved the right to change my mind. And who's their semi going to be against? Probably Inter, maybe. So maybe Inter get to the final.
Yeah, Inter 2-1 up, aren't they?
And if it's Inter, that's a different conversation. But yeah, I think if Barca go through to the final, we face them. I do worry about that game because I think they're just everything we hate in a team. But yeah, we'll see. And so are Inter, to be fair, in a different way.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I think over 2 legs, ironically, I would prefer to play Barcelona than Inter. Um,
over
I
two
just,
legs, yeah.
yeah,
But it's that one game that I go.
it would just be so ironic, though, wouldn't it, for the Champions League? All of the kind of the noise has been about, Real Madrid having Mbappe with Vinicius now, and PSG finally kind of um, becoming who they're meant to be after all the spending, after having like Messi and Neymar and Mbappe, and then Barcelona, the darlings of beautiful football. It would just
Yeah,
be so ironic for Inter and Arsenal to go through to the final. I,
yeah.
I would I would just find that absolutely hilarious. Like,
And
I wanted Bayern
everyone would
Munich
call
in
it
the
the
final.
death of football and whatever.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. But like, for me, I would love Bayern Munich in the final, to play them in Munich
Mate.
after the things they've done to us. I said it earlier, how my heart just sank the last time we drew them, but this time I think if we played them, I'd be really confident.
Do you not
Uh,
want a repeat of the 2006 final for a little revenge?
that's one that I can't deal with.
Because that's the thing. I hate betting against Arsenal, but I just think a Barcelona in a Champions League final on a one-off game in the
Yeah.
form they're in right now, I just feel like they blow us away, and that would concern me because they're so confident going forward. They're so confident.
One thing I would like with that is that right there with a Bukayo Saka performance,
Yeah,
that would cement him as like a true world
yeah,
class player in the
yeah,
eyes of everyone.
yeah.
And
Of
I
course.
think because sometimes it's bizarre to me that Yamal is put on this pedestal far above Bukayo Saka at the moment. And I look in general play, Bukayo Saka can do things that he cannot.
I agree.
And vice versa. I think Yamal on the ball, he's so exciting,
Yeah,
and maybe that's part of it. And I think it's that whole idea of a Barcelona player as opposed to an
yeah.
Arsenal player. I would
I
love that. I'd love
I do.
Bukayo Saka to turn up in a final against them.
Oh mate, it would be unbelievable. I do sometimes think we, as broadly Premier League fans, we look at the likes of Vitinha or Doué or Yamal or whoever it is, players at PSG and Barcelona, whatever it might be, and not overrate them because they're brilliant players, but pretend that they're miles ahead
Yeah,
of the players that we have in the Premier League. And I just don't believe that. I think ultimately, unless you're doing it in the best, what is unfortunately, in my opinion, pretty much objectively in terms of every metric, the best league in the world. It's until I match you up and say, okay, let me see you. I can't put you on a pedestal over there. I have to
yeah,
see you against the best of the Premier League. And if you do it, then great. Then you know what I mean.
yeah. And the other thing is we've seen Bukayo do it on an international level.
Yeah,
Champions League, he's done it now. For England, he's been World Cups. He's been chosen in team of the tournament and things.
yeah,
He's an unbelievable player. I just wish he'd get some of the plaudits he deserves,
yeah.
because it's not even an Arsenal thing. I think certain players just don't ever get the adulation that they need.
Hmm.
I saw it with you with defending Harry Kane of all people. And that's always like a really interesting conversation about the trophies and the goals and things. And um,
I said it on Saturday Social, but it's when you're that consistent, the only way people notice you is when you drop off. It's the only, and Rafinha has been brilliant this season. Everyone's going, Rafinha's brilliant. He's way better than Harry Kane. Hang on, he's at the same level at which Kane has been at for years, by the
yeah,
way. Like, you can't just because someone's jumped up and everyone's going, oh wow, whatever it might be. So yeah, I think, and ultimately, in my opinion, when a player makes a game look that simple and that easy points that Harry Kane can do, I think he's arguably the best 9 in the world. Maybe not on form right now, but he's arguably the best 9 in the world. So yeah, I think he's obviously Mbappe, different type of player, but yeah, top player.
I'll kind of do a little segue then with Saliba.
Yeah,
Is he kind of suffering from that for you? Because he has consistently been one of the best defenders, not just young defenders, but one of the best defenders in world football. I think with Gabriel's rise, it's almost like everyone's gone, oh, Saliba's not quite that good, or he's had a downturn in season.
yeah,
And I look at it and I think, you just look at his numbers, you look at the defense as a whole, he's been incredible again. And is it
Yeah,
is he a victim of consistency?
probably. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I go back to it. I think, I look at like the Brentford game and what he was doing there. I think he's playing out of his absolute skin. But again, when you're that far ahead, I would say it takes a lot. I talk about this thing about uh, reputation lag, and I think it goes from back to front of a team. It takes the longest to catch up from back to front. I think centre back's the second. So like a goalie can be terrible for a year and no one notices, like terrible, or they can be brilliant for a year and no one notices. A striker, 3 games without a goal, what's going on? There's think
Yeah.
pieces being written about them. A centre back, it takes maybe half a season for someone to catch up, and I think a midfielder, it's sort of a run of games, and maybe sort of 10, 12, a sort of period of a season maybe. And I think with a centre back, sometimes it just takes a little bit of time. And I think he's been playing out of his skin for a while. Actually, I think he's been brilliant since probably the turn of the year. Saliba, I've had a few maybe games where you've gone, are you just coasting a touch? But also when you're that good, think about Jamie Carragher. So like sometimes it looks like the Premier League's too easy for Virgil.
Yeah.
I actually don't disagree, but I think there are other players in that category, and I think Saliba is in that category in certain games. There's certain games I look at with the Premier League. I'm like, this is just so beneath your level. Like you're just you're
Which
way
is
better
crazy.
than this. Yeah, which is crazy.
Absolutely mental.
Not the top level games, but yeah.
Let's go through kind of what your lineup would be then and predictions, Alex. So Opta have said more or less it's going to be the same lineup. They're saying Trossard and then Marino, but Partey has flown. So I'm presuming for me, Partey will be available. Would you kind of go with the same lineup as we had last time? Would you change it slightly or?
Neto in goal is the obvious joke. No, at least he's not cup tied for the
I'm so glad we've got David Raya. Could you imagine if he wasn't available?
What a player, by the way. I can't see why we change it from the first leg. If Partey is available, everything seemed to work. I think the only changes are the ones I'd say earlier. I liked that Kivior seemed to grow into the game, and he seems more confident, and he's communicating a lot more now, which is great. I think the left-hand side seemed to work for me, so there'd be no changes there. The right-hand side, I just need maybe a little bit more running from Timber to support Saka. If it doesn't take away from what he's doing on Vinicius, and I want to see the ball worked wide. Probably Thomas Partey taking a few more risks in possession to get that sort of telegraph ball out to Saka and give him some space 1v1. And other than that, maybe sniffing out the transition a little bit sooner at points, a couple of body checks here and there. I'd just go with the same game, try and control it, try and manipulate their space, get through them, work the cutbacks, all the usual good Arsenal stuff. And I think we're cooking.
Yeah. I'm interested to see if Kivior starts to kind of play his game.
Yeah.
Because he almost unfairly, I think a lot of people look at him and his performances in isolation of the mistakes he's made. And there's this, this idea that he does make mistakes quite early on in games. But he's an incredible passer. And it would be really interesting to see if we do soak up possession and, if we soak up pressure and Kivior starts to release the ball and play balls over the top, because he is more than capable of doing that. That would be really nice to see, especially for him, because he seems to be growing in confidence in that partnership. And people forget that he's had a lot of his tenure at Arsenal over on the left side and in terms of left back. He's also played games of right centre back, neither of his natural position. And it's nice to see him kind of going into this game with a lot of fans saying, actually, he should be starting this game. Yeah. We shouldn't be, moving Ben White in for the sake of it. Or if Calafiori was fit, I don't think there'd be many people calling for him right now to be kind of going into that lineup.
Yeah, maybe not for that second leg. I don't know if you saw his comments after the first leg. He said, I played against Mbappe in the national team. I wasn't nervous. Like I've been up against that before and I've dealt with that. And that's mentally that. I think maybe the one thing with Kivior is because he doesn't talk much. People don't really. They sort of impose their nerves about him onto him. It doesn't necessarily make him nervous or him sort of shaky. I think with Kivior, I always have this. I'm sure you've heard me say this before about Cedric. Like, there's certain players who, because they're probably they have the most to their game to develop. Let's put it that way. Out of a group, it's kind of overrated how bad they are.
Yeah.
I think Cedric had this sort of 22, 23, whenever he left the club, where it was seen when Cedric's playing. This is the worst defender I've ever seen play. No, he's not good enough. He's not good enough. But equally, he's probably a mid-table Premier League defender. Like he has mistakes. What we're asking him to do is win as a Premier League, and he can't do that. I don't think Jakub Kiwior on his own is going to lead a line to a Premier League or Champions League double. He might be in a team that wins the Champions League, but he will be he'll definitely be supported by Rice and Marino and Saliba and Ryan, Lewis Skelly, etc. But what he can do when put in the right environment is exactly what you're saying. I think he's been aggressive when he needed to be aggressive. Those clip balls into the channel are lovely. I think in build up, maybe he's a little bit rushed, but he looks a lot smoother when he receives it now. Dropping out to the wide areas and making himself available. I think in terms of physically, there's a couple of moments he gets spun, but not loads. Do you know what I mean? So like how far he is off the level for that some people say, I just don't really buy that. It's like this idea that there's Saliba and Gabriel up here and Kiwior's this terrible player. No, he's not Saliba and Gabriel. Does that make him rubbish? Like,
there's not many around.
You know what I mean? Like, he's not Gabriel. Okay, therefore he's terrible. No, it's and it's the same with Martinelli sometimes. And maybe I've been guilty of it where you're not Saka, so you're not good. It's like, well, is that fair? Saka.
Yeah, I think Kiwior, to be fair to him, if he was in Serie A, he'd play in some of the top teams over there.
Oh, mate, and you get all the same people saying, "Oh, this Kiwior guy
we shouldn't have sold him." And,
at Inter, how in this system, can't believe Arteta sold him exactly. So
yeah, to be fair, I think he'd actually probably start for even like United. I'd look at them and God, they were a shambles the other day against Newcastle. But he would play for most teams in the Premier League. There's a reason he's still part of our squad. If he was that bad, we've seen it with Arteta. He would have moved him on by now. But and he's always available. He's always available.
I also, to be fair, having said all this, I did put Saliba left centre back and Ben White right centre back in my lineup for the first game. But he proved me wrong, and that's great. And this is my whole thing about players like Kiwior is prove me wrong. Go out there and show me why I should back you, and then I will. Of course I will, because you've shown me.
So, predictions then, mate, before we finish up. Predictions for tonight. Obviously, we are 3-0 up currently at the Bernabeu. The roof is closed. Ancelotti's had words with people. They've had their video out. What's the score going to be?
Jurriën Timber, back post header, 1-0.
Ooh, I like that.
Madrid score a long-range effort from Tchouaméni. Bukayo Saka curler to make it 2-1 around 78, 80 minutes. And we go through 2-1.
Oh, I really want to sit on the fence. And
if that's right,
could you? Oh my goodness. Yeah, I reckon it's going to be 3-0 to us again.
Wow.
Declan Rice is going to score 2 free kicks. I actually think it's going to be something like a 2-2 draw. I can imagine Real Madrid scoring early and making it very uncomfortable for us, and it just being, like a silly mistake, or similar to the chance that Mbappe had, the kind of the slide pass from the left hand side, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be like a Kiwior mistake. Before people start saying that. And then I think we'll grow into the game, and then maybe they'll get like a late goal to bring it back to 2-2. But I'm genuinely not worried. It's mad.
I am, mate.
Are you?
My brain is saying we're fine. My heart is going.
No, we'll be fine, mate. We'll be fine. Regardless, we're going through. It'll be fine.
Keep saying it.
The fact that I keep saying it says
We'll be fine.
differently, doesn't it?
We'll be fine.
Yeah,
We'll be
we'll
fine.
be fine.
We'll be fine.
We'll be fine.
We'll be
We'll
fine.
be
We'll be fine.
fine. Thank you so much for
Pleasure.
coming on here this morning, mate. I know you're a very, very busy man. Do you know what? I'll do your socials for you. Here we go. Ready? So you can catch Alex on X because he's constantly got his phone glued to his hand, tweeting on AM
yapping
on football, which for ages I thought was aim on football.
I've never understood why anyone would think it's Amon. Sorry, like it's capital A, capital M, small on, capital F football. That's on you.
So thanks, mate. I bet I'm not the only one. If anyone's watched this, right?
There's a lot of people.
Comment in the little comment. Tell us if you thought it was aim on football or AM on football. It's definitely aim on. Canon podcast. You're on Sky Sports all the time now. I see you on the social. Yeah, not enough time for us rabble, but enough time for them. I get it. On a different knock. And mate, the new podcast, if anyone hasn't watched the Cannon Club, the new podcast with James B.
Yeah. Big fan.
Chef's kiss. Oh,
good. Recording
really
another
good,
episode
mate.
tomorrow, hopefully after a win.
Oh, what's the topic?
Well, yeah, it depends on what's happening today, mate.
Is it going to be based around that? Is it not always going to be based around like a debate type thing?
It will be, but people don't want to watch. People don't want to watch. What people want to watch is going to depend on what happens at the Bernabeu. So,
yeah, fair enough. Yeah, honestly, thank you very much, mate.
Pleasure.
If you haven't, go like and subscribe for all of Alex's socials and all of his YouTube channels, and make sure you like and subscribe on Forum Football because I am actually doing regular content now. There will be more content on Friday with Reese Wackles Football. I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers now.
Peace.